Shalom, welcome back. So we're working our way through the Rock of a Sure Foundation. We're up to NazActs Book 2, Chapter 34. We're in the middle of this debate between Simon Magus and Peter was making the point that Yeshua was consistent in the things that he said, that things may appear to be inconsistent, but you examine them a little bit closer and then you realize they are consistent. And Simon, of course, that was a response to Simon trying to point out what he perceived as inconsistencies in Yeshua's words. So we'll pick up here with Simon's upcoming reply to Peter's latest statement. Then said Simon, I have no need to learn this from you, but how these things agree with one another. For if he shall be shown to be inconsistent, he shall be proved at the same time not to be a prophet. Then says Peter, but if I first show him to be a prophet, it would follow that what seems to be inconsistency is not such. For no one is a prophet on account of a consistency of words, because many are able to do this. Therefore, while consistency does not make a prophet, moreover, inconsistency certainly does not either. However, there are many things which appear to some to be inconsistent, yet are found to have a consistency in them on a more in-depth investigation. In a similar way, even foolish things are thought consistent with one another, but through questioning there is an inconsistency within them. For this reason, I do not think there is any better way to judge of these things than to ascertain in the first instance whether he be a prophet who has spoken these things which appear to be inconsistent. For it is evident that if he be found a prophet, those things which seem to be contradictory must have consistency and are simply misunderstood. And now, even if I, who am an apostle, were to speak of my own accord, I would not be an apostle, because I would not be speaking the things of the one who sent us. And even if, while speaking of my own accord, I did not contradict myself, it would be appropriate that I would not be believed, for this is not my charge. Therefore I have known that we should not speak anything of our own accord, but only the words of the one who sent us and commanded us to teach. That is, we should confirm the truth of his words. So there's a couple little typos I want to correct here, so I'm going to make sure I get those highlighted. So, Peter's making this point. I highlighted this about, if you're an apostle, you don't speak of your own accord, because if you did, you would not be an apostle, because you'd be speaking things. You should be speaking the things of the one who sent us. So there's a certain person in the New Testament claiming to be an apostle, but speaks things which contradict the words of Yeshua. So obviously, that disqualifies him from being an apostle, as much as that pains some people to see. And I think Peter really brings out a lot of good information in this debate, and it really is, on some level, it should be things that are common sense for most of these statements, but for whatever reason, it's things that's been overlooked. It's kind of like back in book 1, chapters 15 and 16, where he says, look, if you're going to say that Yeshua is the Messiah, you should believe him in all things. That should be common sense. But for some reason, the church has trained people not to do that. And in fact, I've had people get actually angry at me and defensive because I even repeat that as a point. When I'm speaking to Christians about Paul, they get offended if you say we should believe Jesus in all things, because it goes against what they've been taught. Then Simon said, instruct us therefore how this can be consistent. If division causes those who are divided to fall, how is he good who promised to save and deliver when he himself created divisions? Then Peter said, I will tell you how our master said that every kingdom and every house divided itself against itself cannot stand. And whereas he himself did this, see how it makes for salvation. By the word of truth he certainly divides the kingdom of the world, which is founded in error, and every home in it, that error may fall and truth may reign. But if it happen to any house that error being introduced by anyone divides the truth, then, where that error has gained a footing, it is certain that truth cannot stand. And this is true. This is something I've experienced in my own life. You have a house founded upon truth, and the people within the house understand the truth. It makes for a very strong foundation. But then when you have someone come in and introduce error and convince members within the house of the error, then it causes division, and eventually everything falls apart. That's why you have to be careful where you are intaking information from. If somebody is a non-believer, especially if it's one of these servants of the adversary, if you have someone who professes to be an occultist or a witch or something like that, and they come in and they start trying to teach you about God, this may be a shocker to some, but that's actually going to lead you astray. That's going to be that introduction of error. And if that happens, it becomes certain that the truth cannot stand. So that's where the division of the houses come from. That's where families are broken up for these very reasons. You have to guard yourself. You have to guard yourself from error. You have to guard yourself from misunderstandings and understanding things incorrectly. And many people don't. Many people just want to push their own agenda. Then Simon said, it is not evident whether your teacher divided error rather than truth in order for it to fall. Then Peter, that belongs to another question. But if you are agreed that everything which is divided falls, it remains that I show, if only you will hear in peace, that our Yeshua spoke truth and divided error, in order that error may be destroyed and fall. Then says Simon, do not repeat again and again your talk of peace, but expound briefly what it is you think or believe. Peter answered, why are you afraid of hearing frequently of peace? Or do you not know that peace is the result of the justice of the law? Because from sins spring controversies, which leads to wars, but peace arises from being obedient to the law due to lack of sin. But even within a disputation, if in the love of truth some will dispute against one another, then by these actions surely they will not sin. Then says Simon, you seem to me not to be able to profess what you think. Then Peter, I shall speak, but according to my own judgment, not under constraint of your tricks. For I desire that what is salutary and profitable be brought to the knowledge of all, and therefore I shall not delay to state it as briefly as possible. There is one God, he is the creator of the world, a just judge, rendering to everyone at some time or other according to his deeds. But now, for the assertion of these things, I know that countless thousands of words can be called forth. This part is highlighted. Do you not know that peace is the result of the justice of the law? So what would this justice of the law be? Well, that would be God's justice. There's these statements from Yeshua that's repeated frequently by Peter in the Nazarene Acts, to seek first God's justice, and the other things will be added to you. We discussed that yesterday. The rejection of the law, it makes that justice unavailable to you. And I think this is true not only of religious law, but civil law as well. Currently, in the nation where I reside, the United States, there has been a setting aside of the civil law in a number of ways, and criminals are given rights that those that are adherent to the law don't even receive. It's almost like the country has developed this mental illness where we reward the most destructive elements of society, and we tear down and restrain the most positive, uplifting, and profitable parts of society. It's like good sense has been turned on its head. Currently, there are riots going on out in California, and we've got foreign nationals running around waving the flags of their countries and attacking members of our government who are there, like police officers and military who are there to keep the peace. They're physically attacking them, firebombing buildings, destroying businesses. I mean, if this isn't an act of war, I don't know what is. You know, you've got military-aged males waving the flag of a foreign country, which they are foreign nationals of, and attacking our cities. That sounds like an act of war. And there's, people out there who are arguing that this is a good thing, that we should just let people be attacked. One of the reasons I'm opposed to this unchecked invasion going across our southern border is because I don't like the fact that our women and children here within this country are being raped and murdered by these invaders. And you don't even have to work hard to look and find the news articles about this stuff going on. And so, wanting just this unchecked invasion, they call it immigration. It's not immigration. Immigration is done lawfully through due process. And when you have people just flooding in to your country unchecked, and they're raping and murdering your fellow countrymen, your women and children, and even some of the men that are getting murdered too, then that's not a good thing. You can't say that you love justice and righteousness while you stand by and allow people to come in who are going to commit acts of injustice and unrighteousness. And so the solution is to just enforce the laws that are in place. And when you enforce the laws, when you invoke justice of the law, and this is true, like I said, of civil law as well as divine law, then peace is the result. But the thing is, it doesn't take a genius to look at what's going on, for instance, in California. It's also happening in Texas now too, and understand that if peace is a result of keeping the law, the justice of the law, if you remove that justice from the law, then you have war, and there's war breaking out. And there are foolish people who claim to be believers who are saying that this is a good thing. There's a guy right now who I got into an argument with him on Facebook months ago about this. And so now the guy's, he's making videos. He's accusing me for some reason. I'm not even sure where he gets this from, but I've seen him making the accusation that I practice black magic and Kabbalah and stuff like that, and which is a completely false, fallacious argument. I have left organizations because someone came into the organization teaching Kabbalah. I absolutely do not. I have spoken about attacks that I've received from witches, even to the point that I know it makes me sound kind of crazy to talk about these things that have went on. And so this knucklehead is going out there and saying that I'm out there doing the same thing, that I'm practicing black magic. It's like, so here's the thing, like, Satan does not send witches to attack people that are doing what he wants. If I was out there practicing some type of behavior like that, he wouldn't see me as a threat. But the fact that I'm actually speaking against these things, he sees me as a threat. That's why I receive these attacks. And then we got this guy who claims to be a believer, who is accusing me of the same thing that I speak against. So, again, this individual, he's going to receive his justice when he stands before God. Like that, you falsely accuse somebody of something like that. That's a capital crime in the Torah. Like, you get killed, stoned to death for practicing witchcraft. So you go and falsely accuse somebody of something like that, then good luck. Good luck with that one. But it's just a demonstration of the lawless state of affairs within this country, where people had rather, what it is, it's effeminate. Like a lot of these effeminate men who themselves don't have any personal convictions. It's like that, I think it was Aaron Tippin who made that song, if you don't stand for anything, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And that's the way it is with the effeminate men. They fall for anything. They hear the call for unchecked invasion in our country, and the bleeding heart stories of, oh, these people are just coming here for a better life. Do you really think the people in California burning down our cities, is that them creating a better life? You're being lied to on TV. You're a victim of propaganda. If you looked at the videos of the people flooding across the southern border, the vast majority of them are military-aged males. The vast majority of them are not women and children. And you can't say you're coming for a better life and then burn down the cities to where you're coming. But effeminate men can't stand up. They can't even see through propaganda. So in their mind, it's like this concept of virtue signaling. People who have no virtue, they virtue signal. In other words, they take like a current event, something politically correct, and they stand on it as if it's creating righteousness within themselves. They misinterpret purposefully statements in the Torah about not oppressing the foreigner within your gates. But here's the thing: does the Torah not also demand that you protect the weak among you, the weaker, the women, the children? So you're going to stand by and allow your women and children to be raped and murdered, and you're not even going to stand up and deny and demand that the justice of the law be carried out. These people are coming in with no due process, but they're demanding due process in the process of getting sent back home to the same country whose flag they're waving in the street. You can misinterpret statements in the Torah to support your effeminate nature of not being able to stand up against evil. Believe me, I've been in that situation in a church before where people were coming in wearing gay pride shirts, and I confronted the pastor. I'm like, why are you not fighting against this? Well, the pastor in that church was a very effeminate man, and he couldn't do it. He was scared. He was scared to even go up and say anything to these women. So I had to do it. And I didn't even have to go and say anything outrageous. I just said, shame on you for doing that. And they fled. Resist the devil and he'll flee from you. That's all I did. I said, shame on you for doing that. Shame on you for bringing that into my Father's house. And they left. Man, some of the most dangerous creatures you'll ever meet are effeminate men, because they have no morals. They have no code of honor. The whole idea of being honest and forthright, having like a code of ethics, is deeply rooted within masculinity. That's why you hear sayings like, be a man of your word. Effeminate men are not men of their words. They're cowardly. They don't want to stand up to evil. They will stand by and let women and children be raped. And they'll attack the people who actually want to prevent that, the people who actually speak against it. Because they see the television as being their tribe. And so they support whatever's on the TV and act as if they're doing something charitable. When in reality, people are being hurt, killed, injured, because They don't want the justice of the law. They want anarchy. They want themselves to be accepted, and they don't want to step outside of their comfort zone and stand up against evil. And unfortunately, there's a trend of people within positions in the church who are effeminate getting these positions as a minister. I've seen the trend for a while. Like, do you really think like Charles Spurgeon would have been afraid to stand up to some woman walking in wearing gay pride apparel? I don't think so. You listen to Charles Spurgeon's sermons, he certainly does not come across as an effeminate man. He comes across as someone deeply rooted in a sense of justice and righteousness. I've talked before that there was a bar here in this small town where I'm in, small town in Tennessee, very conservative town. But this bar decided to start having a drag queen beauty show or something going on, some type of drag night. And there was someone who went around to 30-something churches and talked to 30-something pastors. I don't remember the exact number, but invited these pastors to tell their congregations this thing was going to happen. We were going to have a protest this abominable celebration of sin, and he was looking for people to come and protest. The effeminate pastor, the same one that was afraid to stand up to that woman wearing a gay pride shirt, that same pastor told me about this event. I showed up. Me and my wife, ex-wife now, but me and her showed up. We went to it. There was maybe 7 or 8 other people there. Not a single one of those pastors showed up. Not a single one of them. Oh yeah, they'll preach on Sunday, about justice and righteousness and living sin-free, but they're not going to confront sin. So why is our society becoming so oppressive? Because peace is a result of justice of the law. You remove the justice of the law from society, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about religious law or civil law. You remove the justice of the law, and the land falls into injustice. It's that simple. So, anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. So I think we got 3 chapters in, and we've probably been talking for about 30 minutes. So maybe it would be a good time to take a break, and then I'll pick up again in chapter 37. Thank you. Shalom.